What is up, friends? Will Myers, your friendly Squarespace developer here, and today I wanted to talk to you and show you how to create some wrapped text around an image like this. This was a layout that was sent to me by my friend Alex Saul, who is also a Squarespace designer, and she wanted to know, how do we do this? This was previously possible using just image blocks and text blocks with classic editor sections, but now with Fluid Engine sections, we can't do this. So today we're going to learn how do we rebuild this, and furthermore, how does this work on mobile? So this wasn't previously achievable with the classic editor sections. We couldn't do this. Images went full width on mobile. So how do we create a layout like this in Fluid Engine? That's what we're jumping into right now. First things first, I don't want to hold you hostage in case you don't want to learn code. So let me just show you how to get this going on your website so you can be on your merry way if that's all you want to do. So go to, I've listed this article, this URL in the video below. So click on that, go to the tutorial page and go to the final code down at the bottom. Copy the HTML and let's put that into a code block on our website. So just hit copy, go over to our website. Let's add a block. Add a code block. Use a markdown block if you're on a personal plan and don't have access to code blocks. Markdown works totally fine. And then just paste in what we just created. And it might look something like this, or it should. And then hit save. Let's go to exit. Let's go back to our tutorial page and then copy the CSS. Hit copy. Go back to your website, design, custom CSS, and then just paste that CSS right in there. So now the only thing we need to do is add in the image that we want. So for us to do this, be sure to hit save. For us to do this, we need to replace in the HTML our image URL right here. So in order to get that, go to your asset library. Ooh, one more back. Go to your asset library. Find the image that you want to add in there. Mine is in this folder called Quinn. Right click on the image and hit copy image address. And now just paste that image address into the code block. So open up our code block, image right here in this source attribute, just paste in the image URL right there. And boom, we are off to the races. You are good to go. Done, set. So this is just an easy copy and paste code snippet. If you are part of my Code Curious membership, I have 2 additional code snippets for you, one that makes it sticky and one that aligns it to the right side. You're welcome to go get those if you're part of that membership. If you're not, would love for you to sign up. But now let's break this apart and let's go through this step by step, building this together so you can understand a bit more about how this code works. Okay, so whenever I'm building a code snippet that requires HTML and CSS working together, it's a lot of clicks to jump between a code block and then the custom CSS area and adjust things and move HTML around. So I usually build it out in CodePen. And this is just a really easy way to design and build out things. Just type in pen.new in your browser. It'll open up a new CodePen. And you don't have to create an account if you don't want to. You can just follow along here. But I'm just going to show you what to do. So this is what we need. We need to create our layout. We have the image and the text that wraps around it, right? So whenever we're creating a component, we want to create a container for all of those elements to go in first. So that's what I'm going to do right away. I'm going to create an opening div and a closing div. And in our opening div, let's give it a class, a unique class. We'll just call it text wrap container because that kind of describes what we're building. Now we have 2 components within our text wrap element, our text wrap component, right? We have our image and we have the text that goes around it. So let's create those 2 elements. So another div, and we'll give this a class of text wrap --image. How about that? That kind of makes sense. And then let's just duplicate this for our text, right? And instead of image, we'll have text. Okay, so now we have a container right here, and we have 2 elements within it, one for our image and one for our text. Now for our image, let's add in an image. So to create an image element in HTML, we use this image tag, the img, and we need to give it a source attribute. So this is the URL where the image is hosted. Now in Squarespace, we'll upload the image to Squarespace, use the Squarespace hosting to pull in the image. But just for right now, as we're building this out, let's use a test image. So we can go down here to our assets tab and just hit photos, and we can just grab any image here. So let's grab this scientist right there, and we'll paste that URL, whatever I just copied, right between the double quotes right there. And so we should have a big, massive image right now. And by default, this image is going to be as big as the actual images. We haven't set any widths or heights using CSS on this image. So why don't we do that? Why don't we do that next? So I'm going to target our text wrap image because it's a class. We'll use the dot and then say image, right? And I'll just say width 100%, height 100%. That's kind of a little necessary. And so this will just constrain our image within our text wrap component. Now, this is our image, which is 100% tall and wide within its parent component right there, our text wrap image. So let me just copy that image. And let's give some widths and properties to this. So I'm going to say width. I could say let's say just 400 pixels or something. And now this container is 400 pixels, and the image isn't going to be wider than its container. Okay, so that's great. So now we have our image. Now let's add some stuff. Let's get some line breaks. Just visually, you don't have to add these line breaks. I'm just adding it in so we can see what we're doing a little easier. So now we need to add some text in here. There is a great Chrome plugin called Yet Another Lorem Ipsum Generator, and it'll just generate a bunch of Lorem Ipsum text for you. So I'm just going to do on our paragraph style, if you go all the way to the right, that's going to be sentences in a paragraph, and this is going to be however many paragraphs we want. So this is 5 paragraphs of 5 sentences. I'm just going to copy that and paste. And there we go. So by default, you see these things are just going to stack. The text isn't going to wrap around the image. We're going to have to add some additional CSS. The other thing you'll notice is we don't have line breaks. We don't have line breaks in our code. Our HTML doesn't know that there's paragraphs. Our browser only reads straight text. And so we need to add some formatting within our text so the browser knows where to break things up. So that's what we use these paragraph tags for. So I'm just going to create an opening paragraph tag right here, and then close it right here using that same opening, but starting with a backslash. So now let's just copy this, and we'll just create 5 opening tags for our paragraphs, and then at the end, 5 closing tags. So now I have, now I have 5 paragraphs. Boom. Okay, so let's copy all that. There we go. We can get rid of the spacing in there because our browser doesn't recognize the space in the HTML. Okay, so there we go. So now let's wrap our text around here. So the way we do this is actually a fairly simple property. We target our image, right? So our text wrap image, and we give it float left. And now it's going to float on the left side. And you can see 400 might be a bit larger than we want. Let's change our width to 200. And now you see the text, if it goes longer, it'll wrap further. So let's actually do this. Let's duplicate all of these paragraph elements. And let's also, why don't we do this? We could also add like a heading element, you know? So again, opening tag, closing tag. Be sure you close it because this will really mess you up in Squarespace if you don't close something out. It can produce some errors. So I'll just say my heading right here, right? And it'll pop up as an H3 right there. Great. So what if we just duplicate all of this just to create a bunch of just random text in there so we can see our image wrapping around. So that's good. However, we need some spacing. That's kind of like really tight right there. So on our image container, I'm going to say padding right, colon 17 pixels, right? And there we go. So this is looking pretty good. So now we have our image over here and our text is wrapping around it. So this is generally the structure that I've created in the code from the beginning of this tutorial, or if you are reading on the tutorial page. We have our container, our main container right here. Then we have an image container that holds our image with the source URL of whatever we take, whatever you've added into Squarespace. And then we have our text. So if you are unfamiliar with HTML, it's probably this part, creating your text elements. that's going to be most difficult. So if you want a heading in there, you use heading H1, H2, H3, H4. Always be sure to close it out. And for each paragraph you add, put a P tag at the beginning and be sure to close it out with our backslash at the end. So those are sort of the core things we want to do. Okay, now let's just sort of copy and paste this over onto our Squarespace site. Well, actually, why don't we just copy the code that I've already pre-created and just, you can understand what that is. So copy that code block. Let's just paste it in. Here's our code block. Again, you can use a markdown block. That's totally fine. And notice, again, the structure. So we have our text wrap container, and then our image, text wrap image, then our text wrap text. And then we just need to add in our new image URL for whatever we've taken. And then I have 5 paragraphs in here. Notice it goes scroll all the way to the right, but each one of these is closed out. So again, be sure to close these out. It can really throw some errors in your website if you don't close them out. Okay, so let's add in our image URL, right? Let's hit save, go back. Let's go to our asset library. Let's find the image. Right click and hit copy image address. This is the image I want to use. We will paste in that URL right there. So again, be sure we have double quotes there. So in between the double quotes is where we want to paste in our URL. Done. Okay, so now we need to create our CSS, right? So let's just copy the CSS we've already pre-written. So we can see what's going on. Paste this in here. And again, this is definitely a bit larger than we want. In the code pin, we had to add those width and height per 100%, right? We had to add these 2 values in there. By default, Squarespace already adds this, so we don't need to re-add this, right? So back onto our website, here we go. So you won't see that anywhere in here. What you're gonna see is these 5 properties. So I've set a max width. This is like the 200 we used earlier. I've set this to be 300. You think about this max width as what is the largest it's gonna be, mostly on desktop, because honestly on mobile, it's not gonna be larger than 300 pixels. It's gonna be smaller. So on desktop, how large is that going to be? You could just put a percentage. You could just match this at 50% and it'll always be 50% and it'll grow with the screen and shrink with the screen as well. But I like to keep this at like 300%. And then we have our padding right for our spacing, and then our width, which is 50%. Think about this as your mobile spacing, right? So this is the default. Again, this is smaller, this is gonna be smaller than the 300 pixels. So that's where the 50% comes in, but maybe you wanna bump that up to 60% on mobile. There we go, whatever you wanna do. And you'll also notice we have some space down here. This space is coming from, so we have this line right here on a quest 2, and then explore the world comes next. However, it still sees some space right here. There's still some space. Why don't we add in, I'm gonna try one thing. Not sure if this is gonna work. Font size 0. Yeah, that's not, this isn't gonna, this display block. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna add this into the code to make it a little better. But that is what's gonna get rid of some space. But you might have that issue where it sort of does this, and that's just because the line before it would overlap on the image, so it just pushes the whole thing down and adds some extra space below the image. But this adding these properties in, probably don't need that font size, should help us out there. Okay, so I think that's about it. Yeah, see, there we go. You still see that issue, and that's, if I highlight that line, you can see that this text is overlapping the bottom of our image here, and so it's not gonna overlap it on top. Even though it kind of looks like this actual text could be there, it's not gonna, this whole text line would overlap, so it's gonna push it down. Okay, so that is this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this. If code is something that's curious to you, and you want to learn how to use this within Squarespace a bit more, check out my Code Curious membership. I have the code catalog with all sorts of code snippets in here and tutorials, available series. So these are more like tutorials and stuff. If you want to learn more, go to Curious Coder Info on my website. or just in the drop down. You can learn more there. Otherwise, hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions on this tutorial. I hope you have a great day.